So I did my presentation on the effects of bird feeders on wild avian populations. So the popularity of bird feeders can be accredited to growing urbanization, which means less access to natural foraging spots. Urbanization refers to the population shift from rural to urban areas, so that means more houses and less vegetation like fields and forests. There's less places for birds to naturally forage themselves, and they resort to using bird feeders because of the easy access. So if we follow this flow chart here, you can see increase in urbanization, which means increase in houses and suburbs, which means more bird feeders, because it's just a thing to put out a bird feeder when you have a house and you have a backyard or a garden. Then feeders supply a supplementary food source for the birds, so they might not be as reliant on like forests or naturally occurring food sources. Then the birds no longer have to travel further to find places to forage when it gets colder, so they have a constant access to food and they don't have to migrate to find that food. So that means migration patterns change. So a lot of migration differences have been observed in different bird species because of this. So a large problem with bird feeders is that it increases the spread of some avian diseases. Bird feeders can increase the amount of wild birds all sharing the same food source, so once one contaminated bird eats from the feeder, it can potentially spread to every bird that eats from the feeder thereafter. So some examples of avian diseases that birds can get through the bird feeders is conjunctivitis, which is what this picture is here. You can see the bird's eye is very red and inflamed. That's what conjunctivitis is. Avian pox, which is like human chicken pox or monkey pox, where it's growths or lesions on the body. There is dermal disease, which is a type of fungal infection. And then there is cloacal disease, which is the prolapse of the bird's cloaca, where the inner tissue protrudes through the vent opening. And these are some of the main ones that can be transferred just through bird feeders, just simply by birds sharing the same food source, and many others can also be spread through there too. So it's very, very, very important to keep your bird feeder clean. If you have a bird feeder, there are ways to prevent your feeder from spreading diseases. Just remember to take out any old food that has been in the feeder for more than a few days, maybe more than that if it's especially hot or it gets wet, anything like that. You don't want it to get moldy or grow new bacteria. You should clean the feeder between the refills with water and bleach. You don't want to do too much bleach. Try to keep it 1 part bleach and 9 parts water, but that should be enough to just get rid of any bacteria or diseases that might be brewing in there. And make sure that the food is new and the feeder is clean, because that's the responsibility of owning a bird feeder. Most people get them because they want to help out the wildlife, and that's great, but it needs to be done responsibly. So all of this isn't to say people shouldn't put out bird feeders for the wild birds, but it may come with more responsibilities than you might have thought. If you are looking for some safer alternatives to a normal bird feeder, you can try adding some native trees, shrubs, or plants into your yard or garden that your local bird populations incorporate in their natural diet that they naturally forage on in the forest or the fields. It's a less risky way to help supplement the local population. And you can also help other populations as well. If it's a native plant and native food source, then other species might benefit from your garden as well. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope that if you have a bird feeder that you learned something, or maybe this gave you some new ideas about how to take care of your feeder, or maybe supplement some stuff into your garden. But thank you for listening.